In this video, we're going to demonstrate how the Altosoft product can build a feature-rich dashboard from 3 different data sources. Unlike most demos you've probably seen that have been carefully staged using perfectly prepared and simple data, we are going to show a more real-world example by accessing data from Oracle, SQL Server, and Microsoft Excel. We're then going to quickly incorporate these information assets into a typical dashboard layout, highlighting some of our powerful visualization features. So if you just give me 12 minutes of your time, I promise you'll be blown away by how fast and easy it is to build an interactive dashboard. So to get started, we begin by using Altosoft Studio application, which will allow us to define our data sources, metrics calculation logic, and other necessary configuration settings. One of the best features of our Studio application is its intuitive visual step-by-step guide. The guide is designed to allow any user, whether they are brand new or more familiar, to simply step through the entire process from defining a data source all the way to the deployment of a rich, interactive dashboard. So for this demo, I'm going to build a dashboard for a sales company that needs help in analyzing its business operations selling widgets. Let's start by adding our first data source, which is a SQL Server database. Simply name your data source, enter your credentials, and connect to that data source, and we are off to get all the details about your available data. Once we've connected to the desired data source, we'll now need to create a record. A record in this case is any business fact, transaction, or event. Next, we'll select the data source in the table we're going to start with, and we're automatically presented with a list of fields from our table. Note that since all metrics are defined by time, we always provide a default time field for you on the right. Now here is the fun part. Selecting the data field you want is as easy as simply dragging and dropping the source fields you care about on top of the record structure, and the software does the rest. Now to complete our record, we will join another data table to get additional fields we need. You could add any other data from any other database, flat file, or web service. It is just as easy. Okay, having built our records, we must now define our metrics. We have several metric types, but we'll choose a pre-processed metric in this case. Oh, and for clarity, metrics are aggregations of records, usually in the form of count, sum, or average. Our sample company for now only needs a sum metric. By double-clicking the sum metric, I can visually define that metric using the condition editor. This is where I can define standard or custom logic without writing any code. Simply choose your record fields, select the operations in your metric expression, and build your metric definition. We complete our metric by defining some default formatting in the particular fields to be used for slicing and dicing our metrics later. Now that we've defined our data and metrics, we need to publish our work. With just one click, we automatically push everything we've set up out to our servers so we can begin designing our dashboards. Because we started our project from scratch, we will need to load historical data associated with the record we just created so we have something to work with. Of course, once this is set up the first time, it will then be automatic when new data is available. Step 6. Now we are ready to design our dashboard. Okay, I'll log into our designer using our web-based browser. Notice the view canvas in our new project. This is the view onto which all things will be designed. We have a palette of chart types, but for now, we'll click drag and drop a line chart onto our view. You'll see that dashboard components are easily positioned and resized to create any layout you want. They also have a small menu attached to them with the 4 most used functions. Now we'll grab a grid component from our grid palette, which brings me to another point. Another great capability in our platform that gives you tremendous flexibility is that each component can be independently configured of other components. Since dimensions are ways to slice and dice data in a context relative to you, we give you the ability to easily determine additional drill downs and in what order. As you can see here, to change your drill down order, just click, drag, and drop. From our palette of filters, I'll drop a typical filter onto the view. Filters allow the user to restrict data by a specific dimension for an entire dashboard, specific component, or group of components. Another time-saving feature is that I can actually copy and paste an existing component and simply change its settings to give us our desired behavior. In this example, I'm going to change the dimension to filter by city instead of country. So in just about a minute and a half, we're ready for a preview. Preview mode lets us not only review our layout, but also interact with the dashboard just as an end user would. I'll click on a data point and test our drill down feature. Now, let's exit out of preview mode so I can get back to Studio to add some more data to our project. Just like in the real world, now I want to add several more data sources to my dashboard. So let's go back to my visual guide and simply follow the same steps as before. I'll add and name my data source just like before, but this time let's connect to an Oracle database and simply enter our credentials. Here you will see that the system understands that since I'm connecting to an Oracle database, I must first select my database schema. Once I pick my HR schema, I see my list of tables. And we come back out to the guide again so we can add another data source, and as usual, we'll name that data source. Let's go ahead and connect to an Excel spreadsheet. I'll browse for the particular file I want to use, and again, the software is smart enough to know that a spreadsheet doesn't have tables, so it presents me with the individual worksheet tabs available for me to pull data from. Now, in order to take advantage of these new data sources, I need to incorporate these fields of interest into my records. We do this exactly as we saw before. In this example, however, we can see another critical capability of the platform, the ability to quickly adapt to differences between different data sources. In this case, we need to define the rules for joining our Oracle tables to our SQL Server tables by adding a little custom logic, which, like everything else in the platform, is purely graphical and requires zero coding. Just like before, we simply drag and drop the fields we need from our new data tables and make them part of our existing record. You can also quickly rename fields independent of their original data source names. This ability to dynamically adjust data mappings, naming conventions, and other typically complex operations on the fly, and with zero code, is the cornerstone of Altosoft's advantage over the rigidity of traditional ETL, data warehouse, and cube-based BI tools. Another great example of this is our ability to actually extend the logic of our data source itself without changing it. Let's add a derived field that allows us to categorize our sales based on the number of units sold. We will define the range of values we want to correspond to small, medium, and large. Doing this with the Visual Condition Editor means that we can add and modify these conditions purely graphically with no risk of syntax errors or any knowledge of the nuances of a particular data source. Now that we set the conditions we needed for our order size, we simply drag and drop it into our record. Last but not least, we need to define a record for our last data source, the Excel spreadsheet. Since our software is smart, it automatically maps the spreadsheet data into our standard data model. Like previous examples, we quickly map the data into our new forecast record using the same drag and drop interface. Just like before, we select our preferred metric type and define its details. For our sample company, we'll choose Sum as our aggregation type. Now we select a record field related to our forecast and further assign some properties to some of the desired dimensions using our metric definition editor. Now remember, since the field we drag over can become a dimension, we have lots of possibilities. Now that we have a couple of metrics defined, we can use a derived field to capitalize on the work we already did with a little extra effort. A derived metric is a metric that is calculated from two or more existing metrics that may come from multiple tables even across different data sources. Once again, using our visual definition editor, we simply choose your record fields, select the options in your metric expression, and build our simple or complex metric definition. Now let's go ahead and finish up by defining our sub-metric parameters, such as additional fields to be used as dimensions and changing our default display format to be %. Now that we've added our additional data sources, we once again, with one click, automatically push everything we set up out to our servers so we can get back to designing our dashboards. So since we've changed our records and metric definitions, we'll reload our data to ensure we pick up any new data dependencies. Now back to designing our dashboard. We will use our browser and go ahead and log into the designer. So before we get started, let's just recap how we got to this point. We started with one SQL Server database, and within about 5 minutes, we're able to start designing a dashboard. We then went back and integrated data from an Oracle database and an Excel spreadsheet, and then created some additional metrics based on this new data. We did all of this in Altosoft's single platform with no third-party tools or technologies and absolutely no coding. To finish up our dashboard, we will create a new view which will serve as our main page. I will dress things up a bit by adding our company logo. I'll also give our dashboard a simple title using a text component. Up to this point, we had only created a collection of standalone views. When we deliver our dashboard to our users, we will want to have these views assembled into a single functional dashboard with convenient navigation. To do this, we'll start by adding what is known as a view holder to give us an area on our main view where we will be able to display our previously created views. We finish the configuration by selecting the default view to be displayed in the view holder. The next thing we need to add to turn this into a real dashboard is a menu component so that we can navigate between our different views with a single click. Just a side note, menus can have images attached to them to make them more visually appealing and intuitive. These menu items can be assigned a plethora of actions, from switching views to launching external applications to printing reports and much more. Menus can be multi-level with child or peer elements, and they also can be displayed in a variety of styles. By the way, just like a view holder allows you to manage different views, dashboards can support nested views as well. You can also take any individual component, view, or collection of views and integrate it directly into your custom web application using a simple iframe, or into your SharePoint environment as a native SharePoint web part. In addition, anything that you can see on the screen as a dashboard can be used to generate a report for printing or automatically emailed to a user or group of users on a predefined schedule. Here we add a filter, this one to filter which employees we are including in our charts and grids. Filters have a large number of choices as to their appearance and functionality. Now let's switch to preview mode and check out our work. Through simple and familiar one-click navigation, our users can now easily access all their critical information. And just like that, we have gone from a completely fresh start all the way to our final dashboard in less than 15 minutes. Altosoft is a true single end-to-end platform that provides you the power of enterprise class while empowering you with true ease of use. So instead of watching me have all the fun, why don't you try it for yourself? Download a no-obligation 30-day trial of our platform and get started today.